Every week on the Totally Radvertising podcast, we meet with founders, CEOs, writers, and directors to talk about the creative choices that have made the biggest impact on their brands. And this isn't just any podcast because
it's Totally Radvertising.
I'm Dallin Koski.
And I'm Damian and Dallin.
It's totally rad. It's totally radvertising.
And welcome to the Totally Radvertising podcast. I'm your host, Damian Dayton, joined by my co-host, Dallin Koski. And today we are joined by the multi-talented Nicolas Alayo from True Classic. How's it going, Nicolas?
It's going well. Thanks for having me.
We're stoked to have you. It's been fun working on a project together the last few months. So I want to transition to our last exercise of the podcast. I sent you an ad last night. We'll cut to it now so we don't have to watch it live.
どうしたの？
トールさんが避ける組咲いてる時の顔が好き。
そう？
もっと長く見てたいな。
Long, long, my.
危ないねあの人。
避ける組対長い避ける組。
Okay, so here are my 4 questions. I call these my Super Bowl questions because I ask, after a Super Bowl ad, everybody wants to talk about the ads. 4 questions. Did you like the ads?
I love.
I mean, obviously it was Japanese,
I just love
so a little
creative,
different.
goofy, crazy. I mean, this one's just off the rails. It's just takes such a great creative swing, and it's so unabashedly weird, and I love that.
Just so weird, so wacky. Okay, so the next question is, what was the brand?
I hope I don't butcher the pronunciation, but I think it was like Sakaru Gummies or something like that.
Wow, you even remember I just remember the Long, Long Man. That's all I remember.
Well, I mean, are you asking me who the star of the show was or what we were advertising? Yeah.
That's the name of the candy. But yeah, if you remember that brand, that was the brand of the candy.
Oh, got it.
But that specific candy was the Long, Long Man is what they called that candy. So, you got it. So I always ask questions, do you like it? Do you remember it? What was the product?
Yeah, candy.
And it's like a gum or gummies. I'm not quite sure. And would you try it?
I feel like I would absolutely try it, but I'm not sure I would like it. Like I'm not a big candy, like that kind of a gummy, like a Laffy Taffy kind of person. But
Yep.
I think I would have to try it for the meme. This advertisement I saw years ago, and Long Long Man lives rent free in my brain. It's one of those where just at any given point, like I don't know if I've done it recently necessarily, but Long Long Man.
Yeah.
Long.
Oh, I think it's such a brilliant commercial. I remember, and if I go to Japan, I'm gonna have to bring a case home and share it with everybody who's seen the commercial.
Almost, the
I
Long
got
Long
some
Man
guys.
It feels like a prop that was made specifically for the commercial. Like it feels like one of those things that's kind of like hyperbolic of what the actual product is, because they have like those kind of small gummy ones. But like, I don't know. It's just like I want to buy it just to do the thing that he does in slow motion. Like I want to know what that feeling is like.
Well, in that commercial, it just shows the product, and that's its whole thing. It's this candy that's long.
Yeah.
And I love, though, that they committed to the bit and did a series.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to show this to you because this is where I want, more than anything, to do a long form ad in 6 parts like this. Like I want to do a series that you could play the whole thing through like Long Long Man, or I could play it on Hulu, and as I'm watching the show, I'm getting different chapters of this love. So in the commercial, they're on a date, then the relationship progresses, and they keep on cutting to Long Long, and it even ends up with their marriage and their honeymoon, and it keeps on cutting away to the Long Long Man, and she's just longing to be with Long Long Man and his better candy.
Feels like such a miss for
Well,
fruit
well,
roll-ups.
it
It was right there for you guys
Fruit by
the
the
whole
foot,
time.
right? Exactly.
Yeah, fruit by the foot.
Yeah.
They could have picked up the adult audience, not just a kid's candy anymore. I think long form could do that. I think there's a short form in it, like kind of like you said, in a long form, there's 15 seconds. You can watch 15 seconds of that and get the idea, all 4 pieces, and you get it totally well.
Right.
But if you watch the 6 minutes, like you're all in. Like I love it. I've got the song in my head. They bought billboard space in my brain, and they've got it for the next 15, 20 years.
You know, we've talked a lot about like, because we'll see comments, and comments are somewhat anecdotal because not everyone's commenting, right? But we'll see comments that are like for the Father's Day one, for example, like I thought this was a show, or like I wanted to see the next episode, or like all this other stuff where it's like, you know, the Greg too, like on all the Greg too, like just make a show already. And we've talked very seriously about like how we could maybe make something that's long form, or that isn't necessarily an advertisement, or like kind of is, and I think that's where we always end up getting lost, because we haven't found a way necessarily to create like a series of ads that plays out to the audience in a way that feels like a series, where people know it's a series, or come up with an idea that like is strong enough to hold the retention. Because I think like I don't think we're at a place where we want to invest the ad spend almost to like, hey, 6 videos, you're gonna watch them, this is all we're gonna push to you, basically, so that you know that it's a series, like you know this is absolutely part 1 of 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
And but yeah, there's something great about this Long Man series, which is like there's a twist at the end. Like we're always asking this question of like, why is this guy here? Why is he doing this? And why do these people keep like interacting with each other? And she's longing for him the whole time. And then there's a huge twist at the end where he's gay, and it's actually the husband that like he's been looking at for the whole time. And you're going, oh my gosh, I have to rewatch all 6 of these to see, like, because now there's the rewatchability where it's like I can go back and I can track, like, can I track who he was like really looking at the whole time? So there's a surprise in each like it's like a sitcom, and like there's always kind of the central idea that always plays out almost exactly the same way, but then there's like a little twist at the end that like what's gonna happen next, and that keeps you kind of coming back.
For me, that's the white rabbit that I'm pursuing. I would love to do a long form that you could watch it as 3 minutes, or you could watch it as, 6 15-second pieces. And I think that's just so brilliant. I think it's a great ad.
How do you think that would actually...
Thank you so much for...
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Say what you were going to say. Well, I was worried about your time as much as anything.
I've got time.
But, well, I just thought it was a brilliant ad, and I wanted to share it with you. It's like, there's so few people that think the same way, that are like in the data, worried about performance, but want a great film and want a great commercial, and can like appreciate not just the artistry of the commercial, but like the brilliance of like, I don't like candy, but I got to try the Long Man,
Mm-hmm. How do you think, what, like in your mind, what do you think is the most feasible way to create a series of ads? Like if someone was to say, all right, we want to do this, what is the strategy behind that? Do you think it has more to do with like, let's say you've got the story, it's great. Like, what's the media buying strategy? Like, what does the rollout actually look like to you? Do you think?
So I think it's been done wrong before, where they like do a piece and they try to get you to go to the website to watch the whole thing. I think that could be part of it. I believe that the easiest way to test into this would be to do a 3 to 4 minute spot and have like every 30-second, build it modularly so that every 30-second you could have a to be continued, and make that a gag and embrace that gag, and then online roll it out as a 3-minute ad so people just see it long form. But then on broadcast or on over the top, you do the ad buy through Hulu. Like, I'm going to give you these 6 ads, and the story can be a little bit like Arrested Development season 4. Like you don't have to see them all in order, but it's best if you do. And so even if you see episode 1 and episode 4 and episode 7, then you're like, okay, I need to see episode 2 because it fills in the gaps and it drives that curiosity. And I think if you just do one to be continued, it won't work. But if I see several different pieces, and I think that works because I see it on TikTok. Like if I'm on and I catch a scene of a movie that's really interesting, I'll go into that channel and I'll like try to find the scene, and like I need to see the rest of that scene. And I believe that people's minds are primed for something like this right now. So I'd love to do it like on internet in the long form, but I would also have short versions, middle funnel that could be to be continued, and then do an ad buy and take, like if there's 6 episodes, maybe only put 4 of them up during a week, and it would be like 1, 3, 5, and 6. And like, so people are like, I gotta see this piece that I'm missing.
It reminds me of that app. What was that app that came? It was here for just a minute.
Quibi.
Yeah, yeah, the short form.
QB?
Yeah. And there were a few shows on there. There was one with that Liam Hemsworth kid.
Yeah, and then there's the Kardashians one where the guy had to insert himself into the Kardashians.
I wonder if it could even be, instead of 30 seconds, if it could be like 3 minutes each one. You know, you could really, but I wonder, from a media buying perspective, it's so difficult, to your point, you know.
I think the key is, though, that to let go of control, that they're going to see it in order. Like, the only way to see it in order is on your organic social or on your page. But they're going to keep seeing pieces of something because you've proven that people want to watch Greg, right? So you could do something with Greg too, but other characters, or we've done that with some of our other characters. You know, I think if you're telling a compelling story and you leave it with a cliffhanger, do it the same way that TV does. Like when you're binge watching a show and you're like, they ended it right there. I've got to see the next piece. And if I can do that with an ad.
I actually have a lot of thoughts about this because maybe a year or two ago when we started talking about this, like considering it a little seriously, I was like, I'd love to write anything that's longer than 30 seconds. 30 seconds is a challenge. I didn't realize when I kind of got into this, like how difficult it would be to write a 30-second spot where like every single line, every single one has to matter. Like there's no room for fluff. Like there's not a single room to do anything fluffy. It's got to either be funny or selling or whatever. And even your silences have to matter. But when we started considering this, I was like, what if we wrote like a 30-minute like sitcom basically, and it was like Office Space, and it was at True Classic, and every episode, every scene was a page or 2 long, and like that was it, and we treated it like its own little thing where you could release it scene by scene essentially, but then at the end of it you'd have a whole episode, and you could do like kind of what you're talking about, and it would be more of an organic strategy than it would be a paid strategy, because you're creating a story with characters in an environment that's talking kind of about the brand, but you're getting emotionally attached to the characters.
Well, but think of though, just like a TV show though, if you take a TV show has a teaser or a trailer or a commercial, and so like your episode 1 is your teaser and you put that out there, and episode 2 is on organic. So you have a home base you have to come to.
Right.
So let's keep this conversation going after the show, but I would love to let's tackle this and just see if it's possible. I would have a ball writing this sort of thing. And I think you could do it so that pieces are different. Like you kind of have to put the pieces to the puzzle together. Then like a month after the commercials come out, you can see it all in one place. And I think it would drive a lot of interest.
Coca-Cola did something like this for the Super Bowl. Or they did like a choose your adventure thing. I don't know if you remember that. Like a few years ago, they're like, the story continues on YouTube.
Yeah,
like
trying to think of all the other brands that have tried that. Yeah,
I think people have done like the story continues there, and it falls short. It's got to be really great, and know that you don't have to. But your career has expanded over many years, and you've done something really unique at True Classic. This podcast, some talk about marketing, some talk about creative, and some talk about performance. We really like to discuss the intersection of all those things. Let me ask you this. Looking back at your career at True Classic, what is your favorite piece that you've worked on that has had the biggest impact on the business?
I think I would have to say our Father's Day one is one that I'm particularly proud of. I know it's really simple. It's weird to say that I'm proud of something that's so short and so concise, but and not technically difficult or anything like that. And then maybe the doctor's office one we did was like the first big high quality commercial that we produced in house that continues to perform to this day. So as far as a top performer, I'm pretty proud of that one.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we work with a lot of filmmakers, and a lot of frustrated filmmakers become advertisers, but it's a rare breed that can figure out the filmmaking and the things that make it work, and you were almost like shy or embarrassed about that you were proud of the Father's Day thing, but its simplicity, I think, is part of its efficacy and its beauty. So talk to me why you're proud of that one. Because I think that's one thing that a lot of creatives want to understand, like how as a filmmakers we come to these things and learn the principles. Like I get excited, not because it's gorgeous, although I want to make gorgeous films, but because it works, because it drives behaviors.
When we were talking about the Father's Day one initially, there was this big conversation about like the previous year we had kind of skipped over Father's Day. Or we didn't really capitalize on it as much as we could have. And considering the demo of our brand, it was like a no brainer that we should be kind of making Father's Day the biggest deal possible at True Classic. And so I really wanted to do something that felt relatable and felt like a conversation that everybody has with their dad about their clothes. And I have to give credit where credit's due. I was talking with Greg from GregTube, and we were kind of throwing ideas back and forth. And he was the one who kind of sparked the idea of a dad who hasn't changed his outfit since the 90s, and like the whole family coming together for like an intervention. And from there it kind of just became just a simple back and forth. And it was also the first time we kind of it was the first time we threw a bunch of other outfits in the ad. So up until then we had really only been prioritizing the t-shirt because it's our flagship uh, product. But with the Father's Day one, we built in this sequence that was like where he's like, well, what if I want this and what if I want that? And we went boom, boom, boom. True classic, this stretch classic activewear and formal wear and all this other stuff. And it was really exciting to see people not only react to like, oh, this is my dad, like I know this man and I know this feeling, but also people get really excited and saying stuff like, I didn't realize True Classic had blah blah blah. And that was kind of a huge indication that we needed to start doing that a lot more in our ads. And you can see from then on, just about every ad has some sort of mention of the other products that we do. And even to this most recent one that we did for the holidays, for like the Meet the Parents parody, there's like he in one of the versions he like talks about the shirt really really quickly, and he's like, but I'm wearing the True Classic tee, and he's like, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about any of that anymore. I want to see all the other outfits because we've got so much more to offer. So that Father's Day one was kind of a pretty big pivot. It went a little viral on Instagram organically. And yeah, I don't know, there's something about the sitcom nature and the family and the actors we were able to cast that I don't know, it was just fun. And I love seeing comments that are like, I thought this was part of a TV show or a sitcom. And I'm glad that we can kind of strike that tone while still not hiding the fact that it's an advertisement. So I guess those are the reasons that I'm proud of it. That felt a little rambly, but
No, I think we're really blurring the lines between entertainment and advertising. I think it's part of the value that your brand offers. I know if I get a True Classic ad, whether I'm buying a shirt or pants, I know for the next 2 to 3 minutes I'm going to have a good time. And that's valuable to me. That's why I'm on social media, because I'm trying to have fun. You said something interesting when we met for the first time. You were like, everybody knows Greg's video. When people ask me what I do, they're like, I make videos for True Classic, but not the ones you've seen, the ones that drive revenue. And I know that was tongue in cheek a little bit, but you guys have figured out this really important balance, I think, between this push and pull between performance and entertainment. How do you understand your role at True Classic and the type of content you're creating versus the type of content that Greg's creating?
well, I want to be clear. Greg doesn't not drive revenue for the business. I just want to be really clear. I consider Greg a close
I
collaborator.
know, and I
but,
get that too. I knew that was tongue in cheek. So
yeah, he
Absolutely.
understands what I was meaning. Well,
And he was in the
for
room when you
context,
said that,
For about the
like-
first 2.5-ish, 3 years that I was at True Classic, we weren't doing kind of these bigger spots that were, like prepared for YouTube. They weren't, vertical, or sorry, they weren't horizontal. They were more of the UGC. I was in charge of the direct response stuff. So I was, creative strategizing and editing a lot of the testimonial and UGC footage and a lot of the other stuff that would drive revenue and would be scalable and testable essentially in the ad account. And GregTube accounted for a few videos within our strategy, but those went super viral and they drove revenue, which was kind of, a big indicator to us that there was something really special there. And so as we like searched for ways to balance out the account, you know, I, I went to film school, so like you were saying, like I was like I can do this, like Ryan, put me in the driver's seat, like let me take a swing here, and we tried infusing that voice into a lot of our other ads, and then we took the principles that we learned, on from DR about hooking people in the first few seconds, about creating really tangible problem solution, and looking at what made GregTube work so well, not just from an entertainment standpoint, because the first videos that they did drive a lot of revenue. They really kind of blew up the feed, and we always kind of go back to some of those early GregTube ads to see like what it was that like really convinced people and what made it such a good revenue driver. And it's a lot of the same principles that we see on DR that we kind of just, everyone talks about the retention hacking and like how to make a viral video and how to hook your audience in the first 3 and then keep it relevant and keep it as short and as succinct and as relevant to the primary thesis as possible. And I think naturally they did that without even having like a word for it. And I was doing that very, very specifically without, having the means to do it creatively. So when we started, doing the doctor's office one, for example, for the first time, we'd use a lot of YouTube principles that we'd seen about advertising. We use what we, saw GregTube was working, and then I had a chance to kind of write creatively and make some jokes and really, infuse kind of the marketing into that creative. And it's a conversation that we always have when we're writing. It's like, I want to make sure that people know it's an advertisement. I want to make sure people are entertained. And I have to find this balance, because if I go too entertainment, I lose the thread of what we're actually selling. And if I go too selly, and then people get bored and it's not funny. So whenever Greg and I work together, we're always like, we're always worried about like the second or third line in the actual video, because it's like, do we play the joke or do we introduce the product? And that's an argument we always have.
I think that's the crux of this podcast, is we're trying to figure out that line and discussing that with a lot of people. But I think you hit something really important, which is whether you have that viral success organically or with a paid ad that just takes off and you get surprised, you need to have some DR stuff ready and prepared to help catch all that traffic that isn't going to convert on their first touch. A lot of people will, but you need to have some of those other pieces there. We're always looking for what I call our hinge statement in an ad, which is, after the hook's done,
Right.
I need one sentence that says exactly what the product is and what it does, that I can sum up the whole ad in one line and put that anywhere in the ad, and you'll understand what we're talking about,
Yeah, it's like you create like a 15-second ad or like a 10-second ad within your 30-second, ads. I think some of the best ones we've done kind of like sell you on it really, really early, and then do more jokes that support kind of that process.
How do you guys balance sort of the, like if you're doing a lot of the content with GregTube, and he's almost sort of become like the avatar of the brand, but how do you kind of keep things fresh? Like, do you feel like you're going to run into diminishing returns kind of, now you have so many other products to advertise and other things to talk about than just the tease, but do you feel like, every piece of creative is a bet essentially, and you guys have this formula that works, but do you feel like you're going to run into a point where it doesn't work and you have to keep kind of putting things in to test all sorts of new facets,
Am I afraid of failure? Is that what your question is down?
How afraid?
Totally.
I think it's more about like diversifying the risk, because you have to still place a certain number of bets.
Yeah.
How do you guys balance that internally? I know that you're increasing the pace at which you're producing stuff, and you need some higher production stuff, but you still need DR stuff.
As I've transitioned more into this role of writing and directing the kind of bigger swing commercials, we call them, there's still a team doing all of our DR stuff, and they're working tirelessly, like week over week, doing the kind of bi-weekly cycle of reviewing, iterating, launching. So we still have a pretty robust marketing team for the DR stuff that carries the account mostly. What we're hoping to move towards next year especially is having the big swing videos set the tone for the month and the campaign that will run for product launches or for the theme, essentially aesthetically, from our photography for email and for socials. And that's how we really want to, because we always have this balance of like, our marketing is really funny, but then like it feels disconnected from something over here, and we want to find a way to kind of bridge the gap. And because people love the videos, and because we love doing the videos, and because we really consider it we consider it a fundamental building block of our brand, we want to give it the most support possible. So now we have a great photo team, a great creative director, and they're doing some awesome stuff to kind of support holistically, the videos that we do. And then to your other point, Greg, last year, for example, we did a video with Greg that was like a notebook parody that I directed. And then I think he did another iteration of his Office video. So there was like a second version that he did. And I believe he's doing one now at the end of the year. But in between that, we've had about 2 or 3 videos that haven't featured him and have featured, other actors and other storylines. And I think, we've always talked about not using Greg so often that people get tired of him, and always keep people like wanting a little bit more. And I think that's where, a lot of his content thrives. And he does some, smaller pieces for us that are, a little more low key as well. But in the comments of my videos, we'll always see like, bring back the other guys. Like, this one's funny, but I like Greg. And that's where we want them to be, It's a little insulting, but he's fantastic.
Let's see Greg again.
But
let's be honest, he is delightful.
It's holding on to the golden goose a little bit while we kind of keep everything holistic, and we don't bank everything on Greg's face, and we make sure that when he's on screen and when he does his pieces, that people really enjoy it, are surprised by it, and are looking forward to it. Oh, he did that one with the birthing. That was hilarious. I don't know if you guys saw that one, where he gets birthed.
So I want to ask you about something really specific, because most of the debates that we have as we're writing and as we're discussing with clients is over jokes and whether they land and if this is funny and if this relates to our audience. But you and I both know that there's like a magic moment that has to happen in every single one of your pieces. And if it doesn't have that, the spot doesn't work. It doesn't matter how entertaining it is. It doesn't matter how. Talk about that magic moment that has to happen in all of your spots.
For us, it's the transformation moment. It's like nothing works better than our we call it the Mr. Moody side by side. It's the gentleman on our website who is an XL guy, and he's got his hands out, and he's wearing a boxy shirt, and right next to him in another screen, he's wearing the True Classic shirt. And it just, the immediate recognizable difference in his silhouette is something that basically is present in every single one of our ads. And it's a fun moment too, it's the easiest introduction. It's the quickest, easiest, and most visual introduction to just exactly what True Classic does, which is, elevates men's appearances. So having that moment is always really, really important. And we've tried moments where we don't do that, or the most successful version of the notebook parody, for example, Greg's already wearing the shirt, and he's just talking about like how it fits and all this other stuff. So that was kind of surprising to us, but we did do a version where he transforms. So we're trying to find ways where, especially if we're talking about other product lines or categories, how we can, introduce that or find a new transformation moment. But it always comes back to like the before and after, and the immediacy of the before and after. It's just like, it's hard to argue with. It's like, yeah, it clearly looks better, or at least it looks like the way I want to look.
I think it's undeniable though. Like, I think I've been talking about generations and Generation X and Generation Z. I just like to look at everybody that's purchasing online right now is one generation, and they're immune to adjectives. And I love your chinos. They're comfortable. They're soft. They stretch. They fit me better. But when I see a side to side of the shirt, it's like, oh yeah, I look way better than that. And it's like, it's undeniable. When you show it how they work, you can't resist that. You can't resist all the entertainment just gets the viewer to that moment when they see
Right.
like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I look like that. I want to look like that. And the rest of your clothing is made with that same intentionality, so it fits as well. You can just see it better in a t-shirt.
Yeah, the t-shirt is just like, yeah, it's the only one that has, we've done side by sides of almost every product or like every category that we have. And it's really, the t-shirt's the only one where it's like, oh, it's a noticeable difference, and it's where I want to be. Because other pieces of clothing, it's like, maybe I do want a baggier, like maybe I do want my hoodies baggier, or maybe I like a straighter leg on a thing or whatever. But the t-shirt, it's like, oh, boom, this is a pillowcase versus like something that was designed for me.
How did you guys come to that realization or that aha moment that side by side was the magic moment for you?
I think early on with Michael, Mr. Moody Dresser, shout out, because I love that guy. He was one of our earliest testimonial videos, and in his video, he says, "This is me in a baggy shirt, not very flattering," and then he goes, "And this is me in a true classic shirt." And in one of those iterations, I probably just put him side by side, like with himself, just as like something to test, and it went gangbusters. And so we were like, I guess we got to do this for everything, and we got to put him everywhere, and we did. And you've seen him, and it just works. It's like one of those things where it's like the numbers don't lie, and it's also like,
Yeah, it doesn't just work for him though. It's like everybody you do that with, you take whatever they're in. We saw that on set while we were working. Like, well, now let's put that guy in a true classic shirt, and it was like, well, yeah, he looks better.
it works in person too. It's not even an editing thing. It's a real life thing. And I think what is the best part about it for the advertising side is like, this is a bit of a tangent. There's a game called like Millionaire Hippopotamus or something. There's like a game where you have to like do a sales pitch for a ridiculous thing. So you draw cards like Cards Against Humanity, and you get like a bunch of different prompts, and then you're forced to do like a 1-minute pitch to sell this product based on these like combined elements. And they're always something ridiculous. And if you're an advertiser, it's a really fun way to kind of just flex the muscle of selling something. But ultimately, fundamentally, and especially what I tell like a lot of other people, or when I'm helping someone brainstorm something, it's like, start with your problem and start with your solution. Like, if you have nothing else, that's all you really need. It's that sell me this pen, bit basically from Wolf of Wall Street, right? It's like, how am I going to sell you something that you don't need unless I create the need in your mind? And the transformation moment is all of that in 2 seconds. It's like, your problem is a shirt that doesn't fit well. Boom, here's your solution. And I don't have to say anything in order to convince you of that.
I think what's brilliant about it though is I don't think a lot of men walk around thinking, I look bad in my t-shirt, but then you see, oh, I could look better. And it's just as simple as this purchase. And this is a true classic shirt, and I like that it gives me structure in the shoulders, and but it's different. But that t-shirt, I think you plant what we call the itch. It's not just the pain, it's the itch, and it's like, once you see that ad, you're like, yeah, I'd probably look better in that shirt. And you just keep on thinking about it, like, I wonder if I'd look better. And it is, we've bought them around the office. You can just tell when somebody comes like, you're wearing your true classic, right? And they're like, yeah.
Right. Well, early on, I mean, look, when I started True Classic, I'm not in fashion. I don't come from a fashion background. I dressed very much like the before pictures in a lot of our ads. So I always approached it from a marketing brain. I never approached it from like, this is a t-shirt that's like, we tried some stuff like that, but I really tried to look at it the way I would look at just about any other product that I would try to advertise. And part of being a guy who didn't really think about what he was wearing every day was that, I felt like I had to educate a little bit guys like me about why things weren't fitting the way, were fitting in a way that wasn't flattering them. And so I think a lot of it has, and thanks to like that first viral GregTube video, like we were able to kind of create a brand tone that was like, look, we know you're not thinking about this, but it's okay to talk about it. And we know maybe subconsciously, like, guys really want to look good and want to feel comfortable in their clothes, or they have this like aversion to shopping or trying stuff on. Like, I mean, I'm speaking for myself. Like when I would go shopping, I'd be like in and out of the fitting room as like quickly as possible. And if I was with my mom or my girlfriend or whatever it was, or my sisters, it would be like, what do you think? And they'd be like, oh yes, and they'd be giving their opinions, and I'd be like, too much. Does it cover my body? I guess I'm buying this. You know, there wasn't really a lot of thought to it, but there's something nice about like having a brand tone that's like, dude, you could look a little better. Like it's your best friend just kind of telling it to you straight. And and I think that was something that really unlocked a lot of our advertising and a lot of our brand tone, which was like, we don't have to beat around the bush here. We can just say how we're feeling, and we can be honest about the fact that, like, you know, guys haven't changed their clothes since the 90s, and maybe they need a little bit of upgrade, and that's okay, and it's awesome. And we've got something that's not very difficult to do that, which is also, you know, the kind of immediate the immediate dopamine hit, or the immediate gratification of the t-shirt, where it's like you put it on and bada boom. Like my father-in-law to be like got a pair of True Classics because my mother-in-law bought them for him, and I like walked into the house one day and I was like, Neil, your shoulders and your arms, they're looking fantastic. Like, it was a noticeable difference. I was like, have you always been this ripped,
Have you been working
did
out?
someone use my discount code? So it's yeah, that's kind of, you know, I forgot what the question was there.
It's amazing that jeans and t-shirt have been our uniform for so long, and nobody has innovated until recently on them. It's like jeans and t-shirt, and we've played with baggier jeans, tighter jeans, lower jeans, but making our t-shirt, people were putting all sorts of funny things on shirts.
Right.
But what about just making us look better in them? Making not look clever, but look better in them.
Right. And I think a lot of the audience that knew that secret, I'm gonna big air quotes here, not, you know, that secret of finding shirts that did flatter you and were cut in a way that were, you know, showed off all the stuff. Like, they were at a price point that maybe regular guys just like were not even considering. It's like, I'm not gonna pay $80 for a shirt that does that, and I don't care about the cotton or the whatever. But when you have a product like True Classic that's accessible to a lot of people and has a brand tone that isn't, you know, this crazy, you know, single guy always shirtless, you know, living in a ceramic house or whatever, you know, you find this group of people who can easily, you know, access this knowledge and this you know, this easy little change that, you know, that makes them feel good about themselves.
So, you know, you were on a cadence where you did like these big spots, like once a year or every 6 months, and then you had a lot of DR pieces. But you guys are becoming a lot more aggressive with your content calendar, almost like your TV channel or a YouTube channel. Talk about the approach that you guys are taking in the coming year for creating content and your balance of organic versus paid content.
Yeah, so next year we're really excited because, you know, we've been seeing the success of some of these bigger spots, and we really feel like we're confident in our strategy to take the theme of these videos and expand them across, you know, a month. And we have a lot of products that are launching next year. Shh, don't tell anyone. And so our goal right now is to do about one of these big swings every month. And last year it was once a quarter, and then the year before that, you're right, it was like kind of select moments throughout the year, maybe like once every 6 months. And it kind of just comes, you know, it's we want people to recognize our brand for this, and we're moving in a space that we're moving towards a direction where the DR stuff, in my opinion, is always going to kind of need to be there. We're always going to need that really top of funnel, like, advertising that just straight up tells people what it is in a format that's like really, really straightforward and, you know, organic, I guess, in that sense, and the way it looks and whatnot. But we really see this need to find ourselves some brand recognition and find ourselves in this space where people remember us, or we're top of mind, or we're creating things that people remember. Because no one really remembers like the UGC video that they watched that converted them to True Classic. They remember the guys in the office. They remember the girl in the doctor's office. Um, so in an effort to kind of do that and to keep ourselves top of mind and to push ourselves creatively, even like we the past 5 or 6 videos always lead with the t-shirt, and now we have a new creative challenge, which is like, well, we have a lot of new products that are coming out. Not all of them are necessarily tops, not all of them are easy transformation stuff. Can we do what we've been doing and merchandise some new stuff, basically? So that's a big challenge for us that we're really excited for. I'm personally excited for, and and nervous for, obviously, but that's where we want to go. We always have this conversation of how branded of a video do we make this? Like, how do we sell less in the video, or do we sell really hard? And I think when we look at a lot of our competitors in the space, they really lean on brand. They really lean on how cool you look, or the textile and the fabrics and all this stuff, or the lifestyle of it all. And I think I know Ryan and Ben are much happier when a thing converts. So we kind of have to find that balance of like, I think we put ourselves in a position where we can be fun and entertaining in a way that's also designed to convert. So it's a tricky balance, but I think it's the closest we get to like pure branded videos. On the organic side, it's a bit of an ever-evolving conversation, but I think Ryan is really is a really big proponent of giving back and exciting an audience and surprising an audience. And I think we have a lot of cool brand partnerships coming up that will give us the chance to kind of to surprise people and to give back to them and to highlight the customer. And whether that's some ideas floating around are like wardrobe makeovers, or showing up at sporting events and giving people some surprising merchandise or better seats at a thing. That I don't know if you can say that. Actually, I'm not allowed to disclose that. But basically, our organic strategy is trying to not only, all the tea. Yeah, you might
All
have,
the
you might have
tea's
to wait
coming
until
out
that
here.
actually
All the
happens.
tea. Getting all the secrets. New
We have a lot of
products.
really cool partnerships coming up with some major sports teams and the UFC, and we're finding ways to surprise big fans of those events and capture those moments and really make True Classic just show up in ways that other advertisers aren't. Even in those brand partnerships, like, we don't just want like the logo slapped on a thing and like, oh, well, we were there. Like, to us, that's not enough. There's so much you can do for your customer in ways that aren't even related necessarily to the T-shirt, that create a brand affinity that's a lot stronger than just we were on a banner.
Yeah. You talked a lot about that balance between brand and DR. And Ryan, it was interesting. We interviewed him, and he said like 80% of the ad budget is still the DR stuff. But you've got all these plans to move next year, more towards the brand, but still making pieces that are, founded a little bit in the DR side. How do you guys kind of analyze the performance of those branded pieces and how they impact all the rest of the DR? Because Ryan's kind of said at this point, the DR stuff is really just reminding people, hey, we're still here. We still have the best T-shirt. We sell all this other stuff. And it seems like maybe the branded stuff is still trying to go after those new customers, or that are still kind of in the consideration phase. But there's been all these recent studies kind of released about this, like how you analyze the performance of brand, because everybody's so used to, over the last 8 years or whatever, doing just everything DR. And now they're realizing we have to stand out more. We have to capture people's attention more. So I guess, it seems like you're leading the charge for True Classic on the brand side, still wanting to make pieces that perform, right? But how do you even measure the performance of those pieces,
This is a great question, and one that I'm not fully equipped to answer, probably. But but the truth is, like, it's hard to track a billboard. It's hard to track, a TV spot to a certain degree. The reason the prevalence of DR is so rampant is that it's easy to understand where the dollar is going and where the click is coming from, and XYZ, like the path of conversion. So with these branded pieces, we still run them on conversion campaigns. This is going to get a little technical, but we're also trying to do like video view campaigns. So seeing what the engagement's like on any one of these platforms. And, on TV, they have their ways to measure, and we can do lift studies to see like when a spot is running, like, if there was a lot more traffic to the website, or if there's a QR, like we always put a QR code on the TV spots, so we can even see if people are scanning the videos. So there's like that there's like that very technical, like, is there a conversion here? Maybe kind of. And then there's also like the post-purchase surveys. So, when people are asked about, how they heard about us or what got them to buy today, there's another indication that, like, maybe they're coming from one of these videos, and that's about the closest we can get, because it's hard to track like someone seeing something, liking it, and then 10 days later finding something else and being like, oh, I remember that thing, and maybe they don't even remember what they saw. It's like there's like this ethereal, the human mind. You can't track it that as much as we like to believe that Facebook can tell us everything about how you think.
I think in some ways it's making us going back to what our predecessors were doing, because the pixels aren't working as well, and so we have to go back to like concepts of 30 years ago of like using our intuition and tracking search trends, and the DR pays today, but brand pays off tomorrow, and having enough confidence in what we've learned from DR to know like this is going to pay off, but we have to invest in a little bit and let it ride a little bit, maybe.
I think another thing too is like we're recognizing that not everyone lives on social media. Like there's still a whole world out there where, despite any kind of virality we've seen, despite like the huge success that True Classic has been able to accomplish in such a short time, that there are still people that, like, actually, here's a funny story. When we were shooting the founder video with you guys, we would show up to set a little earlier than just about everyone, because everyone was packing up and transferring over. And the first conversation that Ryan would have with either the actors that we had hired or like the people who were at the location was, oh, have you heard of us? We're True Classic. Almost every single person said that they had no idea what we were, and it was a little heartbroken every time he heard that. But it just goes to show, like, there's still a lot of space to be connecting with people in more traditional avenues, or in avenues that feel like old media, or feel a little dinosaur-y, or feel a little outdated, but kind of are still effective, because if you're not capturing them on Facebook, like you're gonna have to go somewhere else at some point.
There's always a flashy new media, but the bulk of humans are doing things the old way.
Right.
Like, we're all early adopters because we're trying to find the new trends, but I have dozens of people in my life that are older and younger than me that don't do any social media of any kind. And it was, one of those locations we shot at was at a boutique. Like, they were in the clothing industry, and you're doing hundreds of millions more than they are, and they weren't aware of your existence. And I think that is also another reminder of like going back to some of the ways that our predecessors did. And remember, there's still a value in billboards. There's still a value in traditional media, but you can learn your lessons on social media. You can learn your lessons with DR and seeing what drives performance, and then put that everywhere and go omnichannel as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I think like what's been interesting is making stuff for TV, or that we want to format for TV and YouTube, still having a lot of those fundamental principles of DR that, I don't know, maybe give us a bit of a unique brand tone in the space and in a lot of other commercials, and that help us stand out. But it's like uncharted waters a little bit, and I think we're very excited to see where I'm personally excited to see like how that will shift, and what people will resonate as we kind of expand our horizons and find new audiences.
Yeah, I think just by being on TV alone, you'll see exponential results. I think it creates the perception, we've talked about this before, the perception of success often drives success. And social proof that you get from UGC on social media, you get social proof just from being on TV. And they're like, oh, they're a national brand now.
Right.
I'm seeing them during the World Series, or I'm seeing them during,
Yeah.
this UFC fight. These guys are a big deal now.
I like what you said there. What was the perception of success creates success? What did you say?
Yeah, I think the perception of success creates success. I just think about how often you see an ad over and over again. I think, oh, they must be doing well. They must be, because I've seen flashes in the pan appear and disappear in a week, right? They're like, well, that was fun while it lasted. But like, I'm still seeing this. I better give this commercial a chance because it must be doing something for them to still be pouring money into it. And I know more than one brand that took a swing on national TV during like the World Series or something like that. And they just started getting calls and seeing this explosion where they'd moved from DR and had a national platform, and people like, oh, they are legitimate.
Right.
They're not just a guy running a business out of his garage, which is still the perception of a lot of, even when we get big, these e-com brands are still perceived as like a couple of hungry entrepreneurs.
Oh, I think like a lot of the D2C companies that kind of come up through UGC and even myself, I came from right before True Classic. I was working at a DR agency, and there's, I don't want to say it's a pretension necessarily, but when you see the success of DR and you see the success of like this really, like, I like to call it like hard marketing. It's just kind of the difference between like DR and brand, but you think like this is the best way to make a commercial because this is the one that converts. But as we've grown the business and, we've seen that we need to get people into retail stores and we need to get people like, who aren't on the internet, like there is a huge need for brand and, a huge need to show up in the world and to project success, like you're saying, in a way that is more flashy or a little more soft selling. That we're still trying to navigate with like the goal and the intention to create the problem solution, create the transformation moment within the spot.
Well, I think as a brand grows, they go through, we use like high school terminology, like freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. And at each phase, you can afford to advertise differently. A lot of new brands come to us and they want to advertise like Apple.
Right.
And don't realize, no, Apple has taken 30 years to earn the right to advertise like they do. They were the minority computer until they did a bunch of silly ads.
Right.
Two guys on a white screen bantering back and forth that got major adoption.
Yeah,
and now
and
they can do the elegant and slow and the beautiful. And
That actually brings up a good question. Like, do you guys feel like you're making this pivot? Not like you haven't been doing it all along, but do you feel like you're leaning into more of these just because it's like a graduation moment from step to step or like stage in your business? Or if you could go back, do you think you would have started making these changes or investing more into these other mediums earlier?
That's a good question. I feel like it's a bit of a graduation moment. I would say maybe from freshman to sophomore. That's where I would personally. That's what it feels like to me. It's taken us some time to really to like take a bit of a blind swing, or to rather take a gamble like on some of these bigger ads because they cost a little more. Like we know how much a really simple ad can drive. Like it's not a matter of how much money you put into a thing that's going to determine its success, but as we've grown and as we've become kind of more prominent in the market space, like we know, like to a certain degree, it's just like I'll walk into a meeting with Ben and Ryan and they'll be like, I'm tired of these UGC videos. I'm tired of our brand only being this thing. And it's like, I mean, look, I'm more than happy to make, some fun videos and to do all this stuff, but we kind of have to be okay with like just taking this swing. Like we can push it and we can, we're always trying to make something that entertains people and that people like we're not going out there to like disappoint people, obviously, but you don't know until the numbers come in. And I'm always hesitant. Like I never like calling a video successful or anything before it's already showing us whether it's successful or not. So whenever people ask me like, do you think this video is going to do well? I'm like, I hope so. I mean, I'm not trying to make a video that doesn't do well, but I don't know. Like, we're taking the gamble. But I think now
Yeah,
that
you never know.
we've seen the power of people, of brand affinity, and we know that people really gravitate towards this kind of content, and people want to see this stuff from us, which is really validating. It makes us a little more comfortable to be like, look, this is our brand, this is who we are. Like, we're just gonna go big, because nobody remembers the UGC stuff, nobody remembers the DR stuff, no matter how well they convert. It's like, I want to be able to say I remember this piece of content from brand, or I want to remember like feeling this emotion when I saw this advertisement. So, those stories, when we hear customers talk about seeing the ad and then purchasing the shirt and all this other stuff, and they remember the thing that brought them to the site, that's really, that's really powerful stuff. And I think we've slowly been seeing the value of doing that little by little, with without clinching the the purse too tightly. But it's still scary. It's like it's always a gamble.
Yeah, I love that. And I think Ryan talked a little bit about that too. Like Damian asked him like the first piece of creative that he could think of that really changed the business. And when you talk to him, it seems like it was a big sort of risk. It was a big bet to make that, that production at that time in the early stages of the business, and it paid off. And we've seen that just so many times when brands come to Creatively. They're maybe even a little earlier than we would think, hey, are you guys ready for this? But they come to the table and say, all right, here, I'm ready for my Creatively video. I'm ready to take that swing. And more often than not, it pays off. But every piece of creative is a bet. And it's fun to see, even you guys are still taking those bets, still taking those swings,
Well, we mentioned this before. It's a different skill set to take a company from 30 million to 100 million than to keep a company at 100 million. And it's a different skill set to take a company from 100 million to 200 million. Because that person who's trying to maintain the 100 to 200 million they're playing it safe. They just don't want to lose their place. But you cannot move up unless you take those swings, and whether that's on more expensive content, different type of ad buy or whatever. But my personal belief is the most valuable ad space you could buy is in people's brain, living rent free. So if I can do something that haunts people, that are thinking about it, and you're never going to do that with a guy in their sweats doing UGC. You're never going to get space in people's brains so they're thinking about it, that I've got a billboard in their brain,
Do you want to know which Creatively ad lives rent free in my brain? Actually, it's just a moment from a Creatively ad. And this was before we met you guys, because there are some times where you'll find an ad and you'll be like, maybe this is just me, but you'll find an ad, you'll be like, they did a killer job. They crushed, and like you'll go back to that ad and be like, what is working about this ad that is keeping me here and thinking about it so well? The Pillow Cube ad obviously is a huge one for you guys, but the one joke that lives rent free in my head is the Jimothy joke. No, is it Jimothy? Jabraham. You can call me Jabraham.
Jabraham.
That's not my name.
I'm going to take credit for that joke. I took a while to convince Jay on it. And actually, we make a dollar bill pillow cover, and his name is Jabraham Davis on it.
Yeah,
it's
something about the
so
J
ridiculous.
names.
I think it's very similar to Jimson. So I have a lot of, I think we have a lot of mutual respect for you. Well, hey, it's been great having you on. I love talking to you, Nicholas. You're a genius, and
You're too kind.
Where can people find you if they want to see more of your work?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, so Nicholas without an H, NICOLES _Alayo, ALAYO. That's where I'm the most active on any kind of social media. I'm not a very big LinkedIn person or YouTube person or anything like that. So most of my creative projects are in there. A self-plug, actually in the vein of trying to write TV, but keeping it short form. I've been doing this short series specifically designed for socials. So unfortunately, we shoot vertically, but we kind of try to maximize the beauty of the vertical frame as much as possible. But it's all like 1 minute episodes. So they're designed to be really, really bite-sized and try to put a little bit of cliffhanger at the end. It's a bit of an experiment that we're doing. It's a rom-com. So if you're into that, would love for people to check that out. Basically just spending my weekends and free time doing that. That's on Instagram as well. On Instagram or TikTok,
So where
it's
can we
called
find that
eavesdropping.
show?
And
Where
then
can we-
the
where can we-
username is eavesdrop and then .png.
Eavesdropping.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you. And those of you who want to check us out again, you can find us on totallyradvertising.com. Talk to you soon.
It's totally rad. It's totally rad.
Join us every week right here on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, or wherever you listen to stuff for your pods.